You don't know that answer yourself?
Well, I'm allowing Mr. Yeadon to answer it.
Chairman, that's correct. It is not true.
Is not true?
It is not true. There is no relationship at all between availability of liquidated damages and the prevailing market price at any particular time within the NEM.
Mr. Yeadon, have you read the document that was put out to Origin Energy shareholders in respect of this transaction? You haven't read it. Would you be? What would you say to the proposition that within that document, page 20, at page 21 of that document, it specifically says ALDs, that's the payment we're talking about, are higher in peak than off-peak periods. So how does that gel with what you just said? You said that the payments were not dependent on price.
The payment bears no relationship to the prevailing price within the NEM. Perhaps, Mr. Chairman, I could give a brief outline of the Gen Trader for the edification of the committee. And how ALDs work. I'll be interested.
Do you need that?
We're interested, but I don't know if we've got time.
Well, I'll be very brief. I'll be extraordinarily succinct.
All right, thank you. You may need to see that document so you know what the case talking about.
But I understand what it's saying. The Gen Trader agreement is best looked at as a relationship, and therefore there's a contractual arrangement or provisions in a legal contract that outlines that relationship. That relationship is basically about providing electricity capacity, which is done by the owner, the allocation of risk between those two parties, and as the Treasurer and the Premier have both indicated, total absolute market risk is with the Gen Trader. It no longer rests with the owner or the generator. And the document also works to align incentives with those two parties to ensure that they have an interest in mutual outcomes. ALDs, if an owner does not provide electricity when it's called upon by the Gen Trader, then they are open to what's called availability liquidated damages. In the first instance, they're based on the cost of the replacement of a power station for that lost megawatt. Now clearly, or whatever the megawatt capacity is lost during the period when the owner is out. That cost is based on what it would cost to replace a megawatt of power for the owner. Now clearly 1 megawatt hour or a number of megawatt hours won't replace the cost, but if you look at the cost of building a power station in contemporary dollars, for the life of that asset, it basically comes out at around $30 a megawatt hour, which was the strike price for the availability liquidated damages. So that's where it's drawn from, because there's no relationship anymore with the owner to the market. That's clearly with the Gen Trader. So it's just a penalty that's paid to the Gen Trader by the owner if they're not available when they're called upon to dispatch. Now there is a variation to that, because there is some volatility within the NEM through periods of shortage of demand for whatever reason, whether that be weather, breakdown of a generation, distribution or transmission issues. And they can be discerned at times, hot weather and so on, and they've been deemed within the Gen Trader contract as super peak periods. They are very rare or very innumerate times. They need to be nominated in advance by the Gen Trader. And when a super peak period is nominated, then the penalty rate is somewhat higher. I won't disclose that penalty rate because it's still subject to negotiation with a range of bidders and would be detrimental to the commercial aspects of the ongoing transaction.
Has it been finalised with Origin?
With Origin, no, it has not, in fact, which is why I do not want to go into the details of it. But look, it does shift. It does lift the overall ALD average a little bit above 30, because they are only a rare number of times throughout the year, and they need to be nominated by the Gen Trader.
Presumably it's below $12,500.
Oh, absolutely. There's no. Yeah, look, we're nowhere near in the thousands. Oh, we got $30 a megawatt hour beforehand. The other important rationale to understand behind the Gen Trader contract is that the government would be silly to give back in rent, if you want to put it that way, any more than what it was paid for the asset in the first place. So if you look at the capacity payments, and you can draw an analogy with renting a house here, that you know, if you're going to rent a house for X number of dollars per year, if that house was not to be available, then the landlord would not pay back to the occupant any more than the initial rent in the first place, and that's exactly the approach that's taken within the Gen Trader agreement. So ALDs are in fact capped on an annual basis to a maximum amount, which is the capacity charge that's been paid by the Gen Trader. So there's inherent protection in there within the state that they clearly know what the absolute amount of money per annum that they will be up for in an absolute disaster case scenario, that every generator within the state's portfolio was to go belly up for the entire year, then the amount is known. So, and the other important point I think to understand about Gen Trader is that there has been an extraordinary amount of work gone into looking at the parameters of the plant and equipment, the kit, if you like, that is being rented to Gen Traders. In fact, 10 years of data on every half hour of dispatch within the NEM has been looked at to look at every outage that's occurred on all of these plants, both scheduled and unscheduled outages, which has then set the rate for the maximum available capacity that the Gen Trader can call on at any time for the generator to dispatch on their behalf into the NEM. And it's on that basis that the incidence of outage and the penalties that will go with it have been determined, and that has been determined at a very prudent position, which is in keeping with responsible government on behalf of the people of New South Wales. So there are many checks and balances within the document. The whole document is in fact constructed that way. The government knows exactly where it is up to in terms of risk within the Gen Trader. And of course, Gen Traders who have put significant amounts of money on the table to purchase these assets know how they operate as well. One would think, as a matter of course, that people who are purchasing a right to an asset or to an amount of generation would not put such significant amounts of money on the table if they did not know what they were purchasing. Certainly they do. They've spent months themselves and tens of millions of dollars in the data room going through all of this data. They understand what the Gen Trader delivers. The government understands what it provides, and bids have already been entered into and are being finalised, and the transaction goes on. But yes, the availability of liquidated damages bears no direct relationship to the NEM price whatsoever.
Good, thank you, Mr. Yeadon. We'll adjourn as we're having a 3-hour hearing. The committee resolved to have a morning tea break right now, say for 10 to 15 minutes. Thank you very much. 15 minutes. Resume at 20 to 12.
For today, so count up your lolly, feather your nest, let someone else worry, boy, I couldn't care less. You scratch my back, I'll do the same with you, Jack. That's the message for today. Yeah, the workers and the bosses, sweet duet, share the gains and the losses. You bet. Well, everybody's comrades now, like Cain and Abel, we're all brothers and how. If there's any fiddle, get in the middle, stack your whack, Jack, while you may. Well, we all pull together, but not too fast. Gotta help the other fella make the job last. We trust one another just like Big Brother. Explode you, Jack! history. It's the bravest new world that you ever did see. Knock the time and a half up, watch out for the bull. Be first for the cop up, be nobody's fool. Talk about utopia, don't let them soak ya. Just grab your whack, brother, hold on tight. I'll blow you, Jack! I'm alright!
C'est payé